topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got, for the next 50 minutes, we have got a great show for you today. And we are so lucky to have probably one of the finest experts in the field of tax relief. This expert, Barry Fowler, has probably been with us for 10 years. And I've got to tell you, this man knows more about dealing with the IRS than anyone I've ever met. And it's really important. Maybe you don't have a problem with the IRS, but you might have a family member or a friend. And I'm telling you, you're going to learn on this show that you should not try to handle it yourself. Let me welcome you to Barry Fowler. He's president of Taxation Solutions. Good morning, Barry.
Hey, let's do something a little different. Maybe I should interview you instead of you interviewing me.
Oh, God. You don't want that.
Sometimes we've got to have a lot of fun. I enjoy doing these shows, here in Houston. And I think tomorrow we've got our nationwide show going on. And, one of the things I like to do is make sure that if somebody has questions, they're emailing them into you or they're calling into the show. Because we want to answer people's questions. We want to help them out. There's a lot of people that choose to fight the IRS themselves. And some people do have success on it. So, hey, don't get me wrong. And some people just step in it and really make a mess of things. And it's kind of like going out to our ranch and, sometimes there's just these cow patties and you step in them and you make a big mess. Well, that's what happens sometimes when you're dealing with the IRS. And sometimes when you're dealing with the IRS, it's like dealing with donkeys. They just don't listen and don't want to do anything that you want them to do. But they're there to, protect. In this case, the IRS, they're there to protect the interest of the federal government, not the interest of you, the taxpayer. So we were talking about ranching right before we came on. So I had to throw a little bit of these animals out there. But sometimes we just got to butcher them and throw them in the freezer like we do the pigs. So,
hey, Barry, I have learned, we get emails here. One of the things people, and you talk about this all the time, a lot of people are embarrassed and they don't want to come forward, which actually ends up making it a lot worse. And also, there's a lot of people, which I hope we can talk a little bit about today, who have business issues with the IRS, with their business. And we spend a lot of time talking about individuals, but maybe if we can touch on businesses today just a little bit and see if we can make people feel a little bit more easier, facing their problems. Because, we talked about people putting those envelopes in the drawer and hoping they'll go away.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, not only do they put them in the drawer, but, it's the infamous trash can. You just throw them away and they're going to, once you hit that bag and it goes out to the trash truck, hey, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's the same with the drawer. We don't want anybody to feel bad calling us. We have a no judgment zone here. We've had that since we've started in business. We're not passing judgment on you. What we're trying to do is help you and find a way to get you out from underneath the thumb and the weight and of the IRS. And the only way you can do it is to actually get somebody that's going to deal with it, step into your shoes and take care of everything that the IRS is asking. You talk about businesses. Just this week we've gotten a business that came to us, and we were doing some transcript analysis and some other stuff for him. Really wasn't aware of all the tax problems that they have. And that's kind of a really nice thing we get into is tax monitoring. So we kind of monitor also for people that a lot of them we've solved their problem and they don't want to have another problem, or they don't want their offer to get rejected because they make some kind of small mistake out there. Well, we were monitoring him and his business, and all of a sudden he got served from a revenue officer for payroll taxes. Now this is, we're in 2024, but he got a demand for payroll tax returns from 2018, 19, and 20.
Wow.
He also happens to be in the trucking industry, and our sister company, Trucker Tax Tools, also deals with truckers and trucker bookkeeping. And he also got hit for 2290 taxes, which is the heavy highway tax for their big rigs, and then got hit with some 940 taxes, which is also have to do with payroll, and then had some evidently some other outstanding taxes that he didn't pay for his business. So this business is running the whole gambit of what you could possibly run into, especially being in the trucking industry, of the kind of taxes that they'll face. Now we're able to head them off and stop this. I mean, if you'd have seen the request from this revenue officer, he was asking for bank statements for like 4 or 5 years. He's asking for financial statements. I mean, he's really put the burden on the taxpayer. And it should be as simple as, hey, this taxpayer didn't have payroll for these years. Now, in this case, what happens is you set up your business, you applied for your employer identification number, and you did not read the letter that says you have to file 941s, 940s effective immediately, because the way you filled out the application for the employer identification number. It should be something we're going to be able to get rid of and not have to file all these payroll tax returns. But it becomes very intimidating to the taxpayer to deal with this stuff by yourself. And I mean, this guy was really, really upset at the fact that he would have to go back and do all this stuff. So we're kind of heading all this stuff off at the pass, and hopefully we'll be able to put in enough roadblocks to stop the IRS from doing anything further or having to provide all those statements. We'll kind of find out later today. I mean, he just signed up with us on Friday, and here we're already dealing with this on Tuesday. I mean, we already put everything together yesterday. I mean, that's how quick some of this stuff we're going to get through and go. Yeah.
Barry,
but that's the priority we have.
Barry, what are most of the problems you see with businesses when it comes to taxes?
Well, right now it's really 2 problems, and it depends on how you set them up. Again, the first one we see more often than not is payroll. Not paying your payroll taxes or not filing your payroll forms when they're required. It's in this day and age with inflation and everything we've had happen here the last 4 years in this country, and even back to COVID and stuff, that it's easy to skip making that tax payment because nobody's asking you for that money really, really quick.
Right.
And, with inflation and having to pay more for materials and more supplies, the cost of labor, you name it, that has gone up and skyrocketed, here. It becomes one of those easy things to say, hey, I don't need to make this payment. And the IRS hasn't come knocking right away. So first month you don't do it, the second month you don't do it, third month, and it just continues to grow and snowball, and that becomes the highest and biggest penalties you can have out there. Now, on the other side, we've seen companies that come to us that have been set up as, let's say, an LLC, multi-member. And when people don't really realize what they've done when they file for their employer identification number and don't read the IRS letter that lays out everything to you, you forget to file the 1065s. Or maybe you set up an Inc. and you have to file 1120, but you were thinking you were an S Corp. And so maybe you thought, oh, I can just file 1120S. Or you're thinking you're single member and you don't know what you're doing and you just filed it as a Schedule C. All these things that you have as a new business going in, you should have somebody you're consulting with to be able to talk to and say, hey, how do I need to file these tax returns and go forward? People like me that are enrolled agents that licensed by the U.S. Department of Treasury to represent you, the taxpayer, know more about taxes than pretty much anybody else out there.
Yes.
And we're worth our weight in gold. And getting that advice right up front when you're starting your business and working your business becomes worth it. And we can save you a lot of money in taxes. We save you more than what our fees are just by using us and preventing the penalties, the interest, the other stuff that is going to happen to you if you don't follow the law. And that's what it really comes down to. But
how do people get caught up? They get behind on their payroll taxes.
It's one of those things because the IRS demands payment, and payroll taxes come with two parts. So you've got the part one, which is the employer side of the tax. That's what the employer owes. And you got part two, which is the withholding tax. That's the part you've pulled out of their paycheck to pay into the IRS for federal taxes, for Social Security and Medicare. And those, if you don't pay those in, come with a trust fund penalty. Meaning you, the owner, and anybody else that's a signer on the checking account, you count that. Anybody that's a signer on that business checking account could be held liable for those payroll taxes. And so when the IRS sees this and coming after you, they're coming after you for both sides of the taxes. They're going to possibly assess the trust fund penalty taxes against you, all the other owners, or anybody else that's signed. So even if you're a manager of the company and sign checks, you could be held liable for those. And they'll want payments as quick as possible. So, we're able to set up payment plans. A lot of times I'm trying to get trust fund penalties or the trust fund taxes paid as quick as possible so we don't have the trust fund penalties. So we're kind of working hand in hand with the employer to make sure that we get that taken care of as quick as possible. Now, one thing that I can tell you for sure, and I know this for a fact, if you don't call us at 888-930-1016, there's nothing I can do for you. Because one, we may get information on liens and stuff that go out there from the courthouse and everything, but we can't jump in front of anything unless you're picking up that phone, getting that free consultation. Let us talk to you. Let's find out what's going on, how we can help you, what we can do for you. And we'll even actually be very honest. If there is nothing we can do or something you can do simply yourself, we're going to tell you. Because sometimes, to us, just doing something that somebody can do fairly easily themselves, I would rather have you do it than us charge you the fee to go through and do it. Because we can explain to you, hey, look, call this and do this. Yes, you may have to wait an hour or two on the phone, or you may have to call 2 or 3 times to the IRS, because you know how they are. They don't answer the phones. You sit on hold forever and a day. You listen to their wonderful music, and then the phone call drops. I mean, we do this every day. We know how this goes, and we pick it up and redial, and they tell us they're too busy. So sometimes it's not, it's worth the money for us to go through the hassle rather than you going through the hassle. But sometimes there's things that are just easy for you to do, and you should do it. We're going to give you that advice. But let us give us a chance. Let's, call our special tax relief hotline that we have. And I mean, this is set up for Ask the Experts here. And mention Ask the Experts, because we got some great discounts for Ask the Experts fans. 888-930-1016, or just check us out on the web at taxationsolutions.net. Fill out our form and we'll give you a call. It becomes really simple. And don't be embarrassed. There's no judgment on you.
Yeah. Barry, one of the things I've learned from you that is so important is a lot of people will try to handle this themselves at first. And they finally get on the phone with the IRS. And I've learned from you that many times you can say the wrong thing. And by the time they do come to you, Barry, they've really hurt their case more than helped, when they should have come to you in the beginning. And it is so important that people understand they should get started off with you right away and don't let this linger.
As I tell people, if you have the opportunity, you get that first letter, or maybe it's your third or fourth letter, pick up the phone and call us. Like I said, just let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. Tax relief is our specialty. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to get you as much relief as possible, whether we're reducing penalties, maybe even telling them and figuring out that it is absolutely wrong. You don't owe anything, and we can amend the tax returns and stuff. What we don't want you to do is to go and call the IRS and step in that cow pie, and you got to get that stuff off your boots. It becomes a bigger hassle doing that, for us. Sometimes those mistakes are very critical, because the IRS knows how to ask questions. And they're very leading questions, and they may seem innocent. They may seem like, oh, it doesn't really matter how I answer this question. But those questions are meant to find every single possible way to collect every dollar you owe as quick as possible. The IRS's job is not to be friendly. It's not to be nice. It's not to help you. Their job is solely to collect money for the United States Treasury to pay interest on our debt. Not to pay the bills, just to pay the interest. But that is all it's about, collections. Now, if they think you're wrong, or let's say they decide they're going to audit you, their job is to find every single thing possible you did wrong, even if you did it right, to say it's wrong, and to collect more money from you, the taxpayer. You're not their client. You're not their friend. They're not your friend. They may want you to feel that way. They may act like they're innocent and everything's good until you get that audit determination letter that says now you are deficient and owe them $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is. And then they hit you with the penalties because your tax was, more than 15% difference. And now they're hitting you with the fraud penalties, and they're hitting you with these other penalties, and it just continues to mount. You get us, and it becomes an emotional situation at that point, where now you are emotionally involved, and you may say things that you don't want to say. You may get into things that you don't want to get in. We're all emotional, regardless. I get emotional even over your taxes. But I also keep those emotions in check because I know how I can deal with these guys, and I know some of these people are just complain idiots, and we've got to go to the next level. I mean, we have that in all walks of life and everybody's business. IRS is no different. Some of these people aren't even trained very well, and you've got to get to the manager. You've got to get to appeals. You've got to get to tax court, whatever level it needs to be. You've got to get there, especially when you are right and you know you're right. But that's the time also to control your emotions, control what's going on, and control the situation. And that's what we're here to do, is keep control over everything. We're going to listen to you rant. We're going to listen to you rave. You can go off and say what you want to say about the IRS, but we're here to help you and control your situation so that we can get you the best outcome possible. Now, when they're in collections, again, you answer some innocent questions out there, and all of a sudden you're having to pay 100% of what they're saying that you owe, and they want it now. We find ways to get around that and get you either the lowest payment plan that we can possibly put you on, get your penalties reduced, maybe get you an offer in compromise, and those are the different situations we'll go through. Maybe we'll get you on a partial pay installment agreement, or maybe you just don't have it, but you have some other assets you want to protect, and maybe you're in your 60s or 70s and you owe a bunch of tax debt, and we just need to get you in non-collectible status so the IRS isn't bothering you and the debt will eventually go away. We got to look at every situation based on your circumstances and where you are and how we can best serve you to meet your needs and get you the best plan out there.
Barry, a question a lot of people write in about is when the IRS has put a lien on your bank account, can you do anything about to unfreeze their funds?
So actually what the IRS does is levies your bank account, and they'll put liens on your property and everything else. So when they're levying your bank account, we have about 30 days to figure something out to get that funds released. Sometimes, now, if you're in business and we need the money to meet payroll and maybe some other expenses, and to keep you operating and while we're reaching an agreement, yes, we can get the IRS to almost immediately pay you those funds back. Now, I'll be honest, if you've been like one of our clients that finally called us after 3 years of dealing with having back payroll taxes and not doing anything on it, and lied to the revenue officer multiple times, and now the revenue officer's put a levy on your account, whether it's been a year, whether it's been 2 years, whatever the time period may be, that revenue officer isn't going to release a dime to you. That's why we say, hey, let us get in front of it. You get that letter that says final notice of intent to levy. We need to be in front of it now, because in that 30 days, 45-day window from the time you get that, we need to be working with whoever the revenue officer is to come to some kind of conclusion before they actually levy your bank account. But if you're at that point where somebody is about to levy, give us a call immediately and let us start working on it, and we might be able to get those funds returned to you, or at least a portion of it, to meet your bills. But again, that starts with calling us at 888-930-1016 and let us get in front of it. Now, on a personal standpoint, you may be in that same situation. They will levy your bank account when you've ignored the IRS. That's an attention grabber. I've talked to many revenue officers that go, well, they've ignored us. Well, now I got their attention. Well, no kidding. They can't make their mortgage payment. They can't make their car payment. They've been barely making ends meet. They could barely afford to hire us. What'd you expect from this taxpayer? You can even look at their tax returns and see they're not making very much money. How are they going to afford to pay it? So common sense. There's no common sense at the IRS at times. I'm preaching to somebody that isn't even going to listen. And isn't in my church of tax relief. He's in the church of tax collections. And, so it's give me, I want, and there's nothing there to give you. So, hey, let's put some common sense to this and get some tax relief for this taxpayer. We're able to get them to return those funds back to that client. Those funds sit at the bank for about 30 days before it gets released to the IRS. So if we're involved really quick, we can work with that revenue officer, even get to the manager to get those things released. Now, they may have also done it incorrectly. So they may have levied your account when they shouldn't have, because they didn't do the right paperwork, didn't have the right approvals, or they didn't send out the right letters. We look at everything there so that we can get that money back any way possible and get you back to living your life. I would not want to be the husband or the wife who's supposed to be dealing with this tax problem if your account was levied. I can only imagine, and I've heard it while I've been on the phone with the taxpayer, and the wife or husband is going off in the background because that spouse didn't deal with their tax problem. Well, we tell people, man up. Let's deal with it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till it's levied. Don't wait till they've got that lien placed on your property and you can't do anything. Start with us today. Let's get in front of the problem. It's a lot easier for you to be able to sleep at night. Not to mention, you don't get hit over the head with the frying pan from the spouse that said, hey, you were supposed to be dealing with this thing and you didn't do it. And, we want to prevent those marital problems out there. So you can also call us, hey, marriage counseling if you're married and have a tax problem too.
Barry, I don't know if we put enough emphasis, but when the IRS is coming after you, it is a horrible thing to have to go through, and the burden it puts on you. But when they sign with Taxation Solutions, they no longer have to deal with the IRS. The IRS then has to go through you. And that alone should take some of the burden off of them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it allows our clients to rest a little easier at night, knowing somebody else is dealing with it. You don't have to pick up the phone and call the IRS. The IRS isn't allowed to call you. Matter of fact, first thing you get from us once you sign up, besides our welcome letter, our letter of what we need from you, what you need to provide us, is you get a business card. And we give it both to the husband and to the wife. So, there's a couple different cards in there besides some referral cards and other things. And what that card is meant to do is carry it with you. That's your security blanket. If a revenue officer, a revenue agent was to call you, you just pull out that business card and you say, hey, I have Mr. Fowler representing me with Taxation Solutions Tax Relief. Here is their phone number. Give them a call. They represent me, and hang up the phone. Nowhere in there did I say answer a question. Nowhere in there did I say give them any information besides my name and my phone number. And that's it. It becomes a really simple solution for you as our client to take the burden off of you. Now, we ask you to pick up the phone and give us a call as well. Let us know somebody called. And if we've been involved in this case for a period of time, because sometimes these cases will take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Other cases will get done and be able to work with these people within the next the week or two, depending on what the situation is. But if that revenue officer or revenue agent is calling you and you've been with us for any period of time, they're probably breaking the law, because we've been in communication with them for whatever period of time that you've hired us. the day after we get the power of attorney, or even the same day, sometimes we get the power of attorney signed back by you, I'm in communication with a revenue officer if they're assigned to the case, or a revenue agent. And if there isn't one assigned and it's just in collections, I'm on the phone with collections gathering information until we can get our complete record of everything the IRS has. And there's a big difference between what I get from the IRS versus what you get as a taxpayer. I'm going to get a complete record and know every single thing that they have on you, what they're looking at, inside and out, penalties, interest, year by year, what's filed, what hasn't been filed, how it's been filed. Are they coming after you even for fraud? And, we will do some temporary holds in place immediately as you become a client, if they're needed. If not, we don't waste the hold at this particular junction, and we'll wait and do it when we need it later on, because they're only going to give us so much time to hold a case. Sometimes I even put holds on a case that's going to give you, full 6 months to pay this or put a plan in place. And everything varies depending on your situation and how critical it is, because we want to make sure that we have all our I's dotted, all our T's crossed, and we are perfect with what we need to do for our client. I got a funny story for you, speaking about a client and how.
I love your stories.
How things work. We've been working with a revenue officer, we've been working with collections over at the IRS for a couple of months on this guy. And we've actually had the IRS at the point of agreeing to a small payment plan. But we needed him to pay some money on the account before we get this thing set up. And we needed 2 more pieces of information, but we were fully approved on this payment plan, waiting for those 2 things. So they wouldn't give us this written signed off approval. Our client went in to make the payment, and it came up and allowed him to set the payment plan up for what we had. And he called us up, and what'd you guys do? Well, we had everything set up. We have it all there. Before they wanted a $500 payment plan, and that's what you were going to get. And we got you down to a $200. Well, they let me set it up. Well, yeah, that was all the work we did. So it's kind of funny. It made us look like, hey, we didn't do very much, but we did not to that point. And, so now he's like, what else you going to do? We're fixing to have about $5,000 to $8,000 of penalties abated. So just bear with us. We're getting to this point. That's the reason we needed to get you to do this one payment, so we can get the payment plan set up, and then we can get the penalties abated. So, we have a lot of fun with these things, and it takes a lot of work to get some of these things done. But, hey, this is what makes our world go around for us here at Taxation Solutions Tax Relief, is, working against the IRS and helping our clients get on the best possible plan that's out there for them.
Barry, I remember a story. You have told me so many stories, but I remember there was a story that you saved some guy's business like $600,000. And the numbers were just amazing on what you pulled off. But it was like he was so unappreciative on what you did for him. I mean, anybody else would have been kissing your feet.
Well, and with that situation, it was really funny because, yes, we saved, it was closer to 632, 650, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
$1,000. He still had about $300,000 he owed, and he went off on me. And why couldn't we get rid of the rest of it? I actually, one of the few times, and you've known me for 10 years plus, that I've been lost for words. I just didn't even know what to say other than, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And probably because he heard another show where we've talked about, we saved a business close to $1.2 million. They owed
I remember that too.
1.6, 1.5, somewhere in there. And, we saved them over $1.2 million just in tax, not to mention the $200,000 or $300,000 in penalties we got removed as well. And that case, I mean, even those people were not really happy at the beginning with me. It took us 3 years to get that resolved, but it wasn't our fault that it took that long.
No.
It was getting information from the client because we knew the taxes were done completely wrong. We had to go back in, and we actually had to do a whole bunch of trucker bookkeeping for them for basically 4 years of taxes. We had to file. They went through an audit and didn't provide the auditor any information, so they lost the audit completely across the board. By the time they had come to us, they had lost all their appeal rights. So we had to actually go back and do a complete audit reconsideration and had to have every I dotted, T crossed, everything in there perfectly, refile the tax returns, and then pray.
Yeah.
And hope that the IRS would actually look at them and go through this audit reconsideration. But knowing that if they rejected it, I could possibly appeal that one further up and we could probably win because the tax returns were 100% correct. And we were actually able to guide this through appeals or through the audit reconsideration and not have to go to appeals and get rid of this tax debt. My other good story is we're in the last couple of years, we were dealing with a client who went through an audit. Now, he had a very sophisticated tax return. He had a bunch of money coming from some estates and trusts, and everything was coming into his return, and he would get K-1s from different entities and everything else. When we filed all the taxes, he went through an audit, and we won portions of the audit, but this was a correspondence audit, and there would never be an auditor that would call me. And we couldn't, whoever was dealing on the other side couldn't understand it, but they would never make a phone call, and there was nobody to call about it. We'd call and leave messages to that department, and they would never call back. So client lost a good portion of the audit. We decided to take it to tax court instead of dealing with appeals and everything else. So we're sending this through tax court. Now, I don't go into tax court and represent clients, but I can deal with the mediator, the appeals people through tax court. So we never had to step into tax court. We provided the appeals guy in tax court all the documentation. I was able to talk him through everything, explain to him how our return was right, go through all this stuff. And then we left it in the hands of the appeals officer. Well, the appeals officer calls me up, I don't know, 3-4 months later and says, well, hey, I've finished this. The IRS owes your client $180,000.
Whoa.
Do I ask a question why or how? Or do I just tell my client to sign off on this? I said, oh, thank you very much. Hey, that is great. I completely understand. So is my client, we're all square. He doesn't owe anything, because I was thinking they were just going based on the audit and what they were saying that the auditor was saying they would owe. And then he was just going to adjust it back down. And he goes, no. I did everything on this return, redid it and everything else, and you're right in your appeal. And the IRS will cut him a check for the $180,000 plus interest and everything. I went, oh, okay. Well, send me the paperwork. Well, do you have any questions? No, I have no questions whatsoever. So you got to realize tax court is final. I mean, if the tax court judge signs off on this, it is final. They will never look at this return ever again, no matter what's on the return. And there were a couple of issues that I really felt like the auditor missed that could have been potential major issues for this client. but it seals the tax return at that point. Got to sign off in blue ink, get the paperwork in. I sent it over to my client and said, hey, I actually need a signature on this thing in blue ink. And he's like, what do I sign? What am I signing? I said, well, the IRS you're agreeing that the IRS owes you $180,000 plus penalty or plus interest and everything. And he's like, why? Yeah, that's a good question. And we're not going to answer it. We're not going to ask. And he's like, well, I need an explanation. And he's very intelligent, run many, many businesses and knows the ins and outs of things. And he goes, I require an answer. And I'm like, sir, I don't want to go get you an answer. This is tax court. They're saying they owe you $180,000 plus interest. Just sign the damn thing. And let's get it back to him. It seals the tax return. And he's like, what about this? It seals the tax return, nothing else to talk about. He signs it, gets his letter, gets his $180,000 back, gets his interest back. He happened to know my dad as well, and they were in some big meeting, and he stood up and talked about how great I was in front of all his friends and business cards and everything else. Nice. And I'm like, hey, my dad was like super proud of his son and saying, hey, this is fantastic, and didn't know you could do these kind of things. And I said, yeah, so it's, the fun things in life that, we get to do. And, sometimes you get amazed at, what we can pull off over a period of time. Now, he's one of my very, very happy clients. He's still a client. And, we have fun.
Barry, we just got a text in. I want to make sure I get this in before the end of the show. Michael and looks like Dickinson wants to know, how far back can the IRS go?
Well, if you've committed fraud, they can go back as far as they want to. Typically, we're looking at making sure that they got 6 years of the last 6 years of tax returns, sometimes 7, depends on what's going on. Sometimes we will go back further than that, because if you haven't filed a tax return and they have filed substitute for returns, it might be better for us to file them and lower the taxes down. But we're going to look and examine everything on your case, because you may be sitting at statute of limitations on collections or close to it, and we don't want to keep that going or extend that by filing a tax return. We'd rather those run out and not have them collect, because the statute of limitations will run 10 years from when you've filed the tax return. So we're going to look at all of that to determine what's going to be your best route. We've taken people where we've actually stalled with the IRS for an extra month or two, or even 6 months, 8 months, to let the CSEDs run out and not do anything with the tax debt. Maybe put some, stalls in or some holds in. But realistically, we're going to do what we can do to get you the best solution. You just kind of got to bear with us. One of the things we don't like to do, and I've seen other people just do it, and it's some of the larger companies out there and some of the other people that are in the tax relief business or haven't been in the business as long as I have, that will go out and file an offer in compromise. And when you file an offer in compromise, it stops the statute of limitations. But you may be close on the statutes running out on 1 or 2 years or even 3 years. And it'd be better for you, the statute of limitations run out. That's where maybe we put in a small installment agreement to get you through that phase. I mean, we took a client here recently who, over the next 2 years, almost $100,000 of tax debt is going to fall off. And, it's kind of staggered to where over the next, couple of months, they're going to lose, 20 or 30,000, and then 6 months later, another 20 or 30,000, and then, so on and so on going out there. Well, we didn't is put an installment agreement in place for them, something they could afford and the IRS would agree to, but the statute of limitations will run out. Then after those 2 years, we'll tell you to come back to us and we'll reset the installment agreement for the remaining debt that's left that you could pay a lot less on, just based on what the IRS payment plan will be required at that point. Just can't add any more debt to it. But everybody's situation is different. I've heard it. A gentleman that we've been dealing with that we're trying to do offer and compromise. Well, he doesn't qualify. He went out and got married, got a better job, and his situation changed. But yet he's looking at one of his friends and says, well, they got an offer and compromise submitted. Well, I could submit an offer and compromise, but it isn't going to qualify you for it. He may or may not get accepted for it. We don't know what his situation is or how his situation differs, from yours, or what his income level is, or what his assets are. You just happen to have more assets and more income than the IRS would allow you to qualify for an offer and compromise. So if you want to qualify, maybe quit your job, just live on your pension. You just got married. We've got to look at her income, even though she's not on the debt, she's contributing to the household. So we've got to deal with that too. So, we've got to look at different things in your situation, and everybody's situation is different. Just because your neighbor, qualifies doesn't mean you're going to qualify. And just because your neighbor doesn't qualify doesn't mean you're not going to qualify. We're going to qualify you and make sure that, hey, what you need to do and how we need to put the best solution in place for you to save you as much money as possible.
Barry, we keep hearing about these 80,000 new agents. Is that actually happened?
I think just like everybody else, they're trying to hire as quick as possible. They sometimes it feels like they're just hiring warm bodies to answer the phone. Other times they've got some pretty smart people that they've hired. They've tried to pull enrolled agents like myself to come to work with the IRS as well. And a lot of agents have left and have jumped out into this industry. And sometimes you've got to watch if they've been with the IRS 5, 10 or plus years. Sometimes you got to watch out because they still have that mindset of the IRS. We've hired a few of those, and I've had to walk them through the fact that we're here to save you the taxpayer money, not just comply with everything that an IRS agent asks for. I mean, we're here for you. We're not here for the government. That's why we're here to represent you, and we do representation for you. But again, that starts here at taxationsolutions.net. It starts here making that phone call and that free consultation. 888-930-1016, 888-930-1016. Give us a call. Let us talk about it. There's no judgment here.
And I want people to go check out your website. How do they get to your website, Barry?
That's taxationsolutions.net. So it's really simple, but you got to remember it's the .net. So taxationsolutions.net. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you can see it scrolling down at the bottom. But for everybody listening on the radio, again, it's 888-930-1016, 888-930-1016. Free consultation, free phone call. Let us just talk about your tax problem. Don't be shy. Don't be bashful. We've got some special discounts for Ask the Experts because we love this show. Steve-O, you're always great on these shows here, and you let me talk and just ramble on. So sometimes you got to stop me.
No, I got to tell you, Barry, what you do for people is so wonderful. That's it for us today. Barry will be back again with us next month, but he's also going to be on with us tomorrow too, covering the whole entire country. Barry, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. You're godsend, bro.
Hey, thank you, Steve-O. And hey, nationwide tax relief at taxationsolutions.net. Let's get started helping you out. Hey, I appreciate it. We'll be on Ask the Experts again tomorrow nationwide.
Tomorrow? Yeah, bro. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
That's Barry Fowler, taxationsolutions.net. He is amazing. That's it for us today. We'll see you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.